Welcome everyone to today's amazing podcast and interview with the lovely Melissa. So Melissa is a graduate of ours through root cause therapy, and she is an incredible human being with lived experience in losing someone close to her. So I was very excited to get her on to speak on grief today. Melissa is a holistic therapist and end-of-life consultant with years of experience advocating and supporting many through the complexities of mental health. She is also a mum of 2 adult children, living on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, but moving to Adelaide soon, with a big love for nature. In fact, nature was her biggest healer when bereaved by suicide. Melissa is passionate in making a difference in the quality of people's lives, to empower many through life's adversities and find ways to turn tragedy into triumph. Melissa's life experiences lead her to find her sense of self, place, and belonging in the world as an end-of-life consultant, supporting many through death, dying, and grief. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
It's so cool to see you.
It's so great to see you again too. And I was so excited to get you on. I reached out to you because I'm like, we need someone to speak on grief. And, you know, the essence of the Center for Healing is we are lived experience. And, you know, and I believe that lived experience, we can hold the most compassionate space for people through that deep compassion and understanding and empathy. Yeah, so excited to have you on. Tell the listeners, if you feel comfortable, to a little bit about what got you on this path. Like, what is the reason why you even ended up doing one of our courses as well?
Yeah, just even alone how I stumbled across your course, that to me was amazing little journey on its own. I was catapulted into this space of soul mastery, is what I call it. I didn't know that's what it was at the beginning, through the death of my son, who was 24 years of age and ended his life. But I was his carer for a year before that kind of evolved to that as the outcome. So in that year of supporting him, even though I had a mental health background and I was in that space, I did know a lot, but in this particular area in relation to suicide, that was a different field. So it was a field that I had not navigated up until that point. I definitely had people that were experiencing suicidality, but not to this level when you're caring for someone. So anyway, in that year as a carer, there were several moments of where he had attempted. And anyway, and all of that, which is really important to mention, because as a carer, all of those traumatic experiences, I actually never dealt with the emotions to that because I needed to focus on keeping my son alive.
Yes.
Anyway, so it then obviously reached that point of finality and ended up with the worst outcome.
Yeah.
But sitting here 7 years later, it's actually a blessing in disguise. I've gone from the worst of the worst to now a blessing in disguise. And that's really hard for people to fathom. But I guess when you might hear my story a little bit more, it might make a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that 7 years ago, then I was thrusted into that space. I was thrusted into the space of, one, the loss, then also the experience of all the stigma and blame associated to that through many people's religious beliefs that then silenced my grief.
Can I ask, sorry, with that, Melissa, did it, and it's weird to say my own name to someone else, I just have to say, did people actually say things to you, or was it in you trying to research that you found those stigmas coming through?
Yeah, sadly, many people in community had said things to me that were just horrific to someone who was just in the depths of that grief. not only that, the worst was my own family that it became estranged from due to religious beliefs. And there is a longer story with that, with like my upbringing, which created. And so anyway, so here I was, a person grieving the loss of my son, grieving my family, which I now knew that I probably would never have family again. That's how it felt. And then as that stigma, the darndest things people say and it's out of not understanding a person's situation, and they're uncomfortable because they don't know how to communicate to someone who is grieving.
I'm really curious, and just for people that are listening, of what not to say. Would you feel comfortable with sharing a few things that were said that were very hurtful?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the comments people would say, so when I'd gone back to my workplace, for example, people had known what had transpired. Some people just stopped talking to me, for one, because they didn't agree with people for their religious beliefs. But then if I happened to be asked a question of the things that I don't think people need to ask is, how did they die? You don't need those graphic details. You do not need to know that. You're just taking me back into my pain of how my son chose to leave this world. That is not important.
Yeah.
I had people say to me, this is like in the beginning when I wasn't really aware that people could be so cruel, as in you get the random question, oh, how many kids you got? And then in my head, I'm like, I know where this is going, and I didn't know how to answer the question. Oh, I got 2. And I was like, how do I express one's not here? So I had to learn how to say that. But then when in the beginning I was open to sharing, because I myself wasn't ashamed of the outcome of what my son chose to do. And people will go, oh my God, how dare he? That is the cruelest thing he's done to you.
Oh, my
God. I was taken back for 6, and I actually never knew how to respond. And then I had to go away and process, and I'm like, what just happened? And the frustrating part was I never knew how to come back to that. And so I was always left shattered with these different comments, or the worst, I guess, was through family, where I was blamed for my son's death because of religious beliefs. It was like, see, you've been divorced, you've been this, you've been that, this is your punishment, it's your fault. If you followed God, none of this would have happened.
I'm so sorry that is horrible. Oh my
So probably the real worst ones that sort of have resonated and stayed with me. But I understand now that most people, when they are sort of communicating in that way, they're actually uncomfortable themselves because they don't know how to communicate. And so I have a lot of forgiveness for those people, even my family, and most of with my parents now has definitely been resolved. That's been a bit of a journey.
Yeah, wow, that's wonderful. And yeah, I guess understanding and forgiving of you, and you understanding that they're projecting their fears and their, yeah, like you said, beliefs. And yeah, that's so amazing of you. I think that's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. But that then, because that became so common, the amount of things that people would say out of shame and blame and fear and what have you, I silenced my grief. I just knew that I couldn't talk about it. I did not feel safe. And that is for anyone that has experienced any kind of traumatic loss. So we're talking like escalations here. We've got grief in general, which is devastating. Then you've got grief which is even heightened stress when it's your own children. Then when it's traumatic, especially suicide, because we don't get to ask many questions, why? Even though I cared for my son, there's still so much confusion about why. And then So this escalation of the amount of stress and devastation through that tragic experience to silence our grief, one of the things that we must do for traumatic loss is to actually share our story. And we need to share our story 1,000 times. And the reason for that is so we can compute in our head. We're trying to compute what the hell's just happened. And we're trying to make sense of this jumbled ball of mess of so many emotions. It's just phenomenal. And so anyone that experiences trauma loss alone has to share their story with someone that can sit in that space with not fixing, with not having answers, and just literally being silent and allow them to go through the process however they need to go. And so I silenced my grief. And then what happened was, through the silencing of my grief, even though I got back into work and I was trying to get my life back and turn it into something positive by working more in the suicide prevention space, when I was the carer, all of that time, all of that trauma that I went through, witnessing certain things, came back to bite me in the bum. Because it was now, I've got silenced grief. Now I'm starting to go through it's a form of PTSD, because I was already aware of mental health and how to manage that. I knew what was starting to come forward, and I knew I had to deal with it. So that was about 2.5 years down the track. I'd already gotten back into work, and I was trying to turn my adversity into something positive and contribute and bring awareness and what have you. But then I had to pull back again, because I now needed to go through all of this trauma loss, all of this PTSD. I was having dreams, and I was reliving all of those moments. It was actually horrendous. Felt like I was going through it all again.
I think and our dreams, our body and mind are always trying to heal, and it will flash up to you either through your dreams or just through the day, anything that you do need to resolve that hasn't been resolved. And it's very uncomfortable, and it's very hard to relive that, because your body feels like you're right there when it happened. So what did you do next after that started happening?
So it was about 2.5 years down the track, and I was doing a lot of work in the suicide prevention space. I had a really important role for all of Central Queensland, supporting communities with suicide prevention and getting communities together, especially remote. So I did that, but I felt like there was something missing. I was enjoying it to some level, especially when I was in rural. I love the farmers and country people. I really do. And really found a connection. And I think that was based on values. I was really connecting to values, because they are very highly values-based people. But there was still something missing. And I felt like there was this purpose still to be evolved, or still to evolve, but still navigating my way. So I pulled all the way back, but then we jumped into COVID. And so then I lost my job in mental health because of that. And I was actually happy for that. So this is going to be my opportunity to create this vision, whatever it is. Let's create this vision for my business.
Yeah.
And so then I was trying to work out, I don't know how to bring this forward with what I was feeling that I really needed to do. And I know I'm big on educating and awareness to help people prevent what I've gone through in any circumstance. And I was trying to find what tools I could bring in, because I knew I was more holistic than I was systems-based. And that's purely because, like, the systems in mental health and health sector, yes, they are very valid and they are very helpful, but then they're also very limiting, because you sit stuck in this box and you can't step out and do this. And so my heart was just yearning to do things differently. And so I was trying to find how I was able to bring in a foundation And anyway, so I was trying to think, what did I do? And so what I did for me to be, and this is where root cause therapy comes in all of this trauma and grief, and I was determined to heal through this. I was also now embarked on this spiritual journey. I wanted to know, is there life after life? Because the one question I wanted to know is, where is my son? So where is my son? And so I had many questions about the existence of life. So I went on two paths. I was on this open-hearted journey to explore what else is out there, where with the core of trying to understand where Brett is now.
Yeah.
And with that, trying to create my business to see, why am I here? Why am I here? If we have to go through these types of experiences, this is just not normal in my view. And so how I healed through all of that period is I'd sit on my balcony and I had this beautiful bushland. It was just all bushland. And I was up, my balcony was at the level of the trees. So I was up pretty high looking into it. And I used to sit on my balcony every day and start my day with meditation. And what I found is in my meditation, I just dropped in, and whatever emotion was coming up for me, I was just like, we're going to sit into this and see where this is coming from. And what I was naturally doing was I was actually taking myself on a regression.
Wow, you were doing RCT on yourself.
Well,
yeah.
So you could how excited I was when I saw you. I feel like the freaking chair. So I did this for easily 2 years, where I was just determined to heal all of this trauma, because not only that trauma of PTSD, I was also, which I thought I had resolved, was childhood trauma as well, where I was abused at age 13. That's only finally been cleared as of last December.
Wow.
That's insane. Not that it's controlled me as such, but that was an interesting journey that I went on. Anyway, I was going on this regression journey, just taking myself on it. And sometimes it would take me a week to clear something, but I just allowed it, and I would take myself through it once I understood. It's so RCT.
I know.
When I understood the truth of what I was seeing, I was able to clear it. And then I spent a week on forgiveness for the people involved.
Wow.
And then when I was looking for my structure for my business, I stumbled across your course. It was a no-brainer. I just had to do it. And that gave me the structure to begin starting my work. But how I started
amazing that you were already doing it. Yeah, you just needed our structure, the paperwork and the business and stuff.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
Yeah. So absolutely love RCT, but also I adopted also pranic energy healing. Those two are my two modalities that I'll use, especially anyone moving through trauma loss. I find it brings up all the trauma that we've had in our lives, and it helps clear that.
So amazing. That's so amazing. And do you currently work with people one-on-one? Because I know we were talking about before we jumped on, you are transitioning your business, but what have you been doing? And then what is it transforming into as you evolve?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I put a video up on YouTube yesterday, actually, because I really wanted to explain what that 7 years has looked like for me in my journey. I started out doing all of the trauma work one-to-one and did that for a couple of years. Started bringing in more of my pranic as well, so I combined the two. And then I was doing RCT in group sessions as well around my fire circle. So I was quite open to how I did it. I just always tuned into the group and anyway, went through the process, how I intuitively felt each person needed. So it's always the group that comes together, or even if it's just one-on-ones, there's always a very similar energy of people that come in.
Yeah.
And so it works really well. So I started out thinking at this point, then I started transitioning it to, rather than just focusing on supporting people through just trauma loss, then I progressed into counselling and started communicating more in that space, because that was then more people were coming to me in relation to grief and loss.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is I never saw myself as a counsellor. And anyway, there was another little tweak with how I was communicating. And then I started focusing on grief counselling and just only
And I'll just stop
communicating
you
to
there,
that.
because that comes back to what you were saying, how when you first had that loss, you didn't need comments. You wanted someone to just sit there and listen and just hold a really safe space. And I believe that's what counseling is, allowing someone. So it sounds quite perfect for, it's like when I've said to you guys with business, it's like, you are your niche. Like what you needed at the time, you get to give that to people now. And I think that's really beautiful of how that evolves. Sorry, yes, continue.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And deep listening is a massive skill. I always have to come in prepared mentally that I'm always in that deep listening space. That is I think if that was one skill we could all really learn to tap into, because it's so, we can be, for myself, it can be easy sometimes to quick, especially in the beginning days, to want to help. And you can see what's transpiring for this person. And we do have a lot of answers for it. So in the beginning, it took practice to be able to really pull back and sit in the space and allow them to find the answers. So that I feel is an ongoing skill. I always like to just be mindful or remind myself in that area that I'm always in that space and not jumping into a space of needing to fix. Because it can be tricky. Sometimes we're really good at that space, and then sometimes we can be quick to, because of the care and the love that we have, to help. Anyway,
yeah.
So then I was holding that space, but there was still something quite missing. And I'm like, I don't know what it is that feels like it's missing. And anyway, so I'd created at this time a 12-month program called my Signature Mentorship, because I went on a very spiritual journey, and I felt that my clients that were coming to me, and I know this to this day, the clients that were coming to me were actually also seeking the spiritual side and the soul mastery side to themselves, so they could then find their purpose. So that's then what I was, and what I still do is heavily focus on guiding people on those two paths so they can lead them into their purpose. And so that's what I've been doing predominantly since up until, I'm still doing it because I still got a couple of clients on the mentorship now. But then there was this transition starting to take place September of last year. And because I am on my spiritual journey, this is where I felt Spirit was encouraging me now to, we've got to really clear you out and get rid of everything that you're still holding in the deep layers, which was then connected to patriarchal control, which was my upbringing, and resolving my childhood trauma, which I didn't feel that had really been a thing in my life, as in, but there was definitely emotions there. So it was all connected. So anyways, and that led me to unfolding this now where I'm fully anchored in my soul purpose. And this is the end of life consultancy that I do. But funnily enough, everything I have created all of this time up until now is how I'm actually now working on such a deeper level through my end of life compassionate care for people, which is just phenomenal. So my 12-month mentorship is going to be a book that people will lead themselves through. Well, so that's still coming to fruition. I'm just going to finish working with the clients that I have now, and I've been tweaking it so that I can then bring it into a book. So that book's been coming for the last several years.
Yes, I feel you. I've been writing one for 9 months, and I'm like, oh my God, like,
Yeah.
Keeps
So,
going and going.
yeah. So that now everything's just now really falling into place, because in the beginning I had a vision that I was to run a homestay. In the beginning, I saw it as a respite, a place for carers, which it still is in some ways, but especially those more connected to bereavement of suicide.
Yeah.
And it wasn't coming to fruition. And I thought, wow, did I get that wrong? I was actually really thinking, okay, maybe I got that wrong, because I was actually looking 2 years ago for a place that I could actually create this from. But what I feel now is Spirit had popped me into a holding pattern, and I was still developing all of my programs, still developing all my work, which is now about to just go like a 360 in a different direction. But
Yeah.
it's all
but it's all the same essence, isn't it? And
yes.
when you showed me the picture of what you drew so long ago and what you thought it was going to be, it is the same essence. It's the same thing. But like you said, you just had to get not the brownie points, you had to get the wisdom and put it all together along the way. And you look back and you go, oh my God, that's perfect how everything's panning out. It's preparing me for what it is actually going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I put in my little video yesterday, to really encourage people, especially if they're on this journey where they know they have a significant purpose. Because 7 years ago, the seed that I planted and was following, yes, was the direction I needed to take then.
Yes.
And then every time it was kind of evolving, before it would go to the next step, something else had to actually leave my life. And so I did actually go through this period where I had to let go of more stuff. And
that really links to like grieving again, because then you have to let things go and grieve them or pre-grieve them, because you know you have to let them go, and that cycle. And it's like your skills of grieving comes into place, even when it comes to life things as well, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's like a molding of really coming into your belief, really coming into your absolute heart knowing. And that's where I am. It's just like, I feel like it's this love bomb that I get when I'm doing my work.
I'm sure your son's a part of that, and he's just a part of it and leading the way, and it's just beautiful. And yeah, what would you say to practitioners that feel like it's not working? Like, what advice would you give them about connecting to spirit and trusting, and from your experience?
Yes, I have been that person that's been on the spiritual journey. I didn't expect it to go the way that it did, in the sense of the intuitive connection. But oh my God, it's phenomenal and amazing, because I know I've got a team around me supporting me. That I absolutely know. So on this journey, because I believe most of us that are in this space really do have something significant to offer the world through our lived experience. That is our gift. And when you reflect over your whole life, which I've done many times, my whole journey has built me up constantly in courage and strength and values, so that I can really stand in my truth now. So it's about you trust the journey, only focus on your path.
Yeah.
It's really easy to get lost in comparing and lost in everything seems to be happening for that person, but not me. But if it's not happening, I feel that there's always this level that we have to drop back into ourselves to understand where the limitations are a lot of the time. And I think if there was one key thing in business, we need to absolutely 1,000% understand our values. And most people don't understand their values. People say, yeah, I respect, I this, I that. But there's such a key to our values that so for example, my 3 top values is soul mastery and spirituality. That's my number 1 value. My second value is making a difference. And my third value is compassion. So now any of those goals, any of these visions, which are my visions for life, my purpose in life, as in the purpose for soul mastering spirituality is that I'm constantly improving myself. And it's just so that I personally feel like I've got a really strong spiritual path connection with spirit. If that was this is the thing, if that's my number one goal, then you look at your life and see how you live your life. For example, I easily can spend almost 24/7 working on soul mastery and spirituality. It's like I will get up and I will do my meditation. There's no doubt, no question. I can I can spend so much time working on myself, and there's no effort involved in doing that. You just get up and you just go do it. That means my value is aligned to my purpose there. So making a difference in my work is the same. If we're finding we're blocked, it's because I feel that there will be a value that is not in alignment. For example, for me to make a difference in people's lives, you need to be able to just do it. It's like there's no second effort. I can come in here and I literally get so lost in my work and with my clients, I am so present that holy shimoly's 12 hours has just gone past 1 hour. That again shows that my values are aligned to my work.
And I ask, that's amazing. Can I ask just for some listeners that maybe don't really do that in a practical sense? So that would mean checking in with themselves is like their decisions that they're making and what they're doing during the day. Does it check off on one of their top 3 values? And if not, that's probably why they're feeling blocked with abundance. That's probably why they're feeling blocked with their purpose and their energy. Would you say that? Is that like what you mean?
Yeah, let me try to think of an example. So before I was really clear on my values, which I've been working a lot on for probably the last 8 months, I've actually couldn't believe how much I changed my values. Initially, I had money as my wealth management is what it was called, how I called my value, wealth management as my number one.
Yeah.
Because I was really wanting to create my business. And I didn't realize that it was actually money is actually not my priority.
Yeah.
That's not my priority. And I went, whoa, if that's not my priority, what is? I was just like, literally, it is making a difference. You know, it is literally making a difference.
And the thing is, with making that difference, the wealth and abundance will flow naturally because you're being of service rather than in survival and protection and saving every penny kind of mode. You're in, I'm going to give service. I'm obviously going to charge for it, but then it doesn't have to be the number one because that's automatically going to come, isn't it, when you're aligned with that?
Yeah. And so what I found was like, I kept focusing on, I've got to get so many clients this week, got this, like I was all in that mindset. And then what that was doing was actually bringing up like almost a sense of fear and unsafety.
Yeah.
And I went, this is insane. And when I started reviewing, I was just like, whoa, the moment I took that out, it's like literally about 11th on my list now.
Yeah.
It's like, and these 3, it's just that I get up every day and I focus on the highest priorities in these 3 areas and everything flows.
Yeah, I see that. And that's incredible. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing, because I think even like during these times in Australia as well with the economy, it is easy to slip into, you know, what you were saying earlier, comparing to how other people are going, but also listening to the fear of the news and the financial crisis and things like that. Even I went on a spiritual retreat the other week at a awakening retreat center, and they were talking about, and this is the Brahma Karma or something. Their religion is based from India, but like basically Hinduism. But they were saying the more that you're connected with your soul, that abundance will just come, because when you're connected with your soul, you just are compassionate, you are kind, you are of service to others, and you're not just thinking about you and your ego, and that will naturally come. So that's really resonating, and I think a lovely thing for people to hear that feel that scarcity at the moment. I just want to lead back to grief, if that's okay. Well, that's gone in a beautiful direction. I do want to stay on topic. In terms of if practitioners are listening, and any practitioners that are listening, I do recommend you reaching out to Melissa and even referring clients to her as well, and her new services that are coming down the track. But with fear of death and initial grief and shock and then the PTSD after, do you have any words of wisdom for practitioners that might have a client that is going through one of those? And I know you said the deep listening is very important and not fixing, but just from your own lived experience, is there anything else that you think would be helpful for them to know to support their clients?
I think, what's important is, I guess for them, just trying to
take your time.
Just try and think what the main, I guess the amount of emotions are pretty like full on day by day. I think the one thing is you can only really initially go minute by minute. In that very early stage, you need to just go minute by minute, because you're in this devastation, and every time you wake up, not that you're really sleeping, sleep is essential. So if people could actually try to get them to get better sleep, that will really help them. It's one of the things that took me 5 years to get back to normal sleep patterns. That's massive.
Yeah.
And the nervous system, actually, so that they're aware, actually, that would be the key thing. Your nervous system is shot to pieces, absolutely shot to pieces. And what I found, even 4 years down the track, was I was still overreacting to just little things. A slam of the door, and I'd literally jump out of my skin. I would see something on TV and I just burst into tears, and I thought I was losing it. And what it was that my nervous system, and I knew this from my personal training days way back. So I knew actually what was happening. But even to go to doctors, when I asked, I told them what I needed. I said, I asked them to test my body and my bloods and the this and the that, because my nervous system is shot to pieces. They laughed at me, and I knew what was actually taking place. So your nervous system just overreacts. We do have to get that back on track.
Yeah.
So slowly, gradually, and you're not losing it. Just really continue to encourage them that it's phenomenal. It's different for everyone, but the sleep and the nervous system needs to get back on track to start to bring in your overall well-being. We need to be self-compassionate towards ourselves, and just know that, okay, I might be overreacting here, and families will respond or react to that as well. So a communication with the whole family. Part of I remember which I don't tap too much into now. When I first started with yourself, Mel, you provided that mental health package to encourage the family to support the person. So maybe encourage that. Teach the family as well how to communicate, so that they're a little bit more understanding and compassionate, even the emotions 4 years down the track, because it's not normal. It's actually very normal. And get the nervous system back on track, and get their sleep patterns back on track. And it takes time. Yeah. Literally, I swear it took me probably 5 years before I fully got back into it. And now I sleep like a baby.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So nice. And that's that really deep sleep, that rejuvenating sleep, which obviously will help the nervous system, and it all just can start to heal. Yeah, that's so good to hear. And I do hear people say people's grief, everyone expresses it differently. So not judging how the person is expressing their grief, I think, is important too. That's really beautiful. And talking about earlier, following your purpose and your evolution and your spiritual journey and your values of serving others and compassion, could you share a little bit about that vision that you've got and how that's transitioning for the listeners? If they perhaps need you right now or in the future, what is it looking like? What are you going to be offering soon?
Yeah, so literally it's all pretty much the same as how I've created it on my website currently. I've added it still needs tweaking. So basically I give 3 options for people to be supported through death, dying and grief. And spirituality is a part of that because people are now questioning spirituality more before they die. So they actually go on a very spiritual journey. So my spiritual journey is a big part of it, what I've already written and created in my mentorship.
Is that to help release, the fear of death?
Yeah,
Yeah, because I have that, even though I'm quite spiritual. I'm like, I don't know if it's because I am a mother now, but I do have a fear of death. But I could imagine if someone didn't have any spiritual beliefs and they didn't know where they were going to go, there would be a lot of dysregulation and stress and anxiety about knowing that they're going. Sorry to interrupt you there, but I thought it just really nice to weave that in. Yep. And then the spiritual journey.
Yeah. So I assist basically everybody pre and post death. I still do all my grief counselling, but what it is, I now just literally, I work full time is my preference to take the whole family on the journey. That's the beautiful thing with death and dying is we're more conscious now that there actually are options to go through this process. So I'm the funeral celebrant. I'm the green burial advisor. I do respite, so I will stay overnight where needed. I do all of the advocacy and connections into services as I work alongside other healthcare professionals that are coming here, the nurses, the doctors and whatever.
That's really important. Yeah, because they're not going to, it's like almost like a death doula, like when you have a doula giving birth. You're not in a state to be interacting with all these people and you want someone to advocate for how you would like it to go yourself and have someone that you feel safe with to translate that to everyone for you.
Yeah, so I support the whole family, all the carers. I come in, it's literally, it will be tailored to individuals, but I just provide all those services of companionship, advocacy, the getting our affairs in order, filling all in all the paper, making sure, because just one thing, how many passwords do we have to all our different accounts? If you don't have those passwords, you cannot get into anything. Like it's an absolute nightmare. So advanced care directives are so important. I go through all of those forms and make sure everyone's affairs in order. I make sure we communicate and go through all that whole decision-making process with absolutely everything, with legalities to what needs to be planned and helping the dying go through the transition, because for many of us, we go through a lot of regret if we don't feel that we've lived our life well. You're with conflicts with family that you want to resolve. So I encourage family to come in. So if, for example, if I have someone that had conflict with their parents, for example, never spoke to them for 20 odd years, they might actually want to communicate. So I try to line that up and see if the other party want to also find some kind of resolution together. So it's just absolutely everything that sort of comes through this whole transition of dying.
Yeah.
But also grieving. So we're grieving our life, especially if it's terminal illness. We're grieving our life now because we know it's actually finishing soon. And then all of the family and the friends are also grieving.
Yeah.
And so there's this whole, I see myself as the household manager. I just manage everything that needs to happen.
Amazing.
From pre and post. Yeah. And then taking the family through the grieving process afterward.
And that's one of the key things, Melissa, and what's really beautiful. If anyone's quite spiritual, number one, they're not taking all their heaviness with their soul as they pass through. And then number two, what happens is when the family has a million things they have to do, then they don't have a chance to grieve. They have to push it to the side and get all these things done, and they're stressed and they don't know what to do. Whereas you stepping in place to them allows them to be able to process it at the time that it's happening, and you're holding space to them. And as we know with root cause therapy, it's not always that you have a trauma and then you always have PTSD. It's like that you weren't able to process it at the time. There was no space or understanding on how to process what you're feeling. If you process it at the time, you can heal as you're going. So that's invaluable. That's an invaluable service that you could give, that you are giving to families and their loved ones. It's absolutely amazing. If they did want to find out more, if they did want to take you up on this service or your other services, we do have the website in the show notes. But just in case anyone's listening in the car or they can't access the show notes, could you just tell them your website or where to find you on social media?
Yeah, so the website's probably the direct place to catch me. So that's Rising Strong Holistic Healing. So it's actually www.risingstronghh.com. And if you go to my contacts page, you can just put in there that you want to connect, because I do actually have an option there for you to book a free consult call for 40 minutes, especially carers that need support. And they can just, and then that will come straight into me. It's probably the most direct, the easiest, without sort of things getting amiss. But I do have Facebook and Instagram. You can find me under my name, Melissa Newman. Rising Strong will come up. And they're the two places. So I can offer as minimal as 2 to 3 hours to give carers some respite. So they can go and get a coffee and go do shopping and just like breathe. And I go as far as doing the whole full-time week service for how many months that's required.
Amazing.
So,
and do you work in one area of Australia, or they cover expenses? Can you go to other areas of Australia?
No, I can definitely travel all of Australia. And because I am transitioning from Queensland to Adelaide, I'll be setting up most of my services over the next year in Adelaide. So for now, people will find me in Queensland, that I can come to most places, because there's plenty of people that I support within their homes, as well as what I'm creating. I'm also creating a space where I actually have that space to offer. So my home is going to be set up as a homestay wellness type centre, where I can also support people who don't have somewhere to go for their last days. But that will be sort of transitioning.
It's incredible. It's beautiful. And you're an amazing person. And you've been through a lot as a mother, as a carer, and going through what you did with your family after what happened. And I just think you have turned it into such a beautiful, loving, healing space and services, and also just absolute gold. Like, I just think you're amazing. And I'm so honored to have you as a part of our community. And just, I don't want to say proud, but it's so incredible what you're doing. So thank you so much, and for sharing your story. I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people, whether you're a practitioner listening, or whether you send this to one of your clients, or you yourself just wanted more information on grief and suicide. It's just definitely go out and connect with Melissa. Did you have any last thing that you're like, oh, I wish I shared that, or anything that's dropping in for you to share with the listeners before we close up today?
I would say to everybody, like, creating their business, it's all exciting, but just be patient, allow it to evolve, because I wanted it to happen like tomorrow when I embarked on my journey 7 years ago. But to be honest, to fully be in my absolute truth and aligned to all of my values for community and myself, it's literally taken 7 years. Doesn't mean it's going to take that long for you and others, but if it is feeling like it's going slowly and not as quickly, just have patience and stay in your lane, and just keep following your heart, because there was many times I wanted to quit because I felt like I was not aligned, and I literally had reached probably 3 moments over that period where I was going to chuck it in. But I just knew I couldn't. In my heart, it's just something then just gave me enough hope to keep going. So just keep going, just keep following your heart, stay in your lane, and don't worry about what everyone else is doing. You just have to focus on you.
I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. And I think also, just to add on to that, just people knowing that it's not going to be the finished perfect product or service that you're offering straight away. It's an evolution. As you evolve and you heal and you grow, what you offer will change and it will update and it will be a reflection of you. So letting go of that perfectionism and just taking action, I think, is the key. And then you just keep doing that and it's allowed to change and evolve as you do, I would say. Yeah. Oh, amazing. Well, thank you so much, Melissa. I'm just honored to have you on. And again, for anyone listening, you can go down and connect with Melissa. I'll put the links in the show notes. And if you're interested in root cause therapy, I'll link that down there too. And we'll wrap it up for now. But thank you so much for listening and cannot wait to share our next practitioner or whoever comes on for our chat. So thank you again. Bye.
Thank you.